I've been married to my wife for 2 years now. After a few months of living in San Francisco, we moved to Washington, D.C. It was at a musical event 3 years ago that we met. The first time we interacted with each other and enjoyed the time we spent together. I thought it was first and last time because sometimes we had a good time with our random stranger friends. But fate had other plans and our paths crossed again. We kept in touch and I asked her out on a date. We both knew we had something special and the rest is history. But after that, we started chatting regularly and meeting up on a regular basis. It was a multinational company where I worked, and it was a supermarket where she worked as a manager. Anyway, after dating for about 1 year, we decided to get married. The wedding took place, we had now been happily married, and we are both very grateful for the way our lives have turned out and feel blessed to share our journey together. As a result of my job, after a few months we moved to Washington, and we've been married ever since. It was the first time we had introduced ourselves to our neighbors. We quickly made friends and we've been part of a great community ever since. We are now settling down and planning for our future. It's been an amazing journey so far and we look forward to what lies ahead. There seems to be a lot of peace and tranquility in the neighborhood. It wasn't until a few days later that we started jogging. During our jog, we had the opportunity to meet a couple who were very friendly and nice people. As a first step, we introduced ourselves to one another. There was something strange about the husband's behavior when he was watching my wife in a strange way. There was a feeling that his eyes were fixed on my wife. Afterwards, we went on our way. In the 5 minutes, we talked to them. He was constantly watching my wife while we talked to them. I found his behavior to be concerning, and I decided to keep my distance. We made an excuse and said our goodbyes as soon as we could. I was relieved to be away from the couple and continue our jog. There was a comment made by my wife about this as well. In my opinion, his wife was one of the nicest women I have ever met. In spite of this, I am not a fan of her husband. As a result of her first impression, I was very disappointed. In fact, I had an image in my mind of a man who was a weird character. I was glad to be able to distance myself from that couple and take a break from uncomfortable situation. We both agreed that it was best to continue our jog and put the incident behind us. A day later, I returned home from the office. I saw him once again near my house. It was a sudden moment when I arrived. His face seemed confused or nervous. Despite the fact that we had not told him where our house actually was, I got out of the car and asked him what he was doing. He lived on the next street and started talking about coming here to invite us to the dinner. He then excused himself and left. When I went into my house, I asked my wife if he had visited you. As she said yes, he said he was passing through here and thought we should meet. And in fact, he invited us for dinner at his house. I told my wife she should make an excuse about our busy schedule. In addition, my wife insisted that I visit them and spend some time with them. I agreed for her sake, so I decided to visit them the next day. I was reluctant, but I knew it was the right thing to do. When I went to their house, I was welcomed with open arms, and we had a great evening. His wife was a great cook. She cooked us delicious Chinese food that we all enjoyed. Having spent some time with them, I started liking them and I began to think that I was thinking about him wrongly, and in fact, they were very close to each other. We talked for hours and I was really happy that I had taken the effort to visit them. I felt a sense of peace and friendship between us, and I was glad that I was able to get to know them better. We parted ways with a promise to meet again soon. Once we had finished drinking the entire bottle, we returned home. It is the fact that I loved my wife greatly, but I started experiencing a change in her behavior after moving to Washington. I think it was a natural feeling when we notice our loved ones cheating on us and we reacted to that in a natural way while watching how they behaved. I tried to be understanding and asked her what was going on, but she refused to talk about it. I decided to take a step back and give her some space to figure out what she wanted. I could sense something was wrong, but I couldn't figure out what it was. I felt like my world was crumbling around me. When my wife started hiding everything from me, things began to change. I knew I had to do something, but I did not know what. I began to feel overwhelmed and helpless, and I felt like I was losing control of the situation. I decided to take some time to think and figure out the best way to approach the situation. Because I knew everything about her, including her cell phone password, laptop password, and all that. I could even sometimes take her cell phone and use it, but now everything was different. She had changed all of her passwords and locked me out. I knew I couldn't keep going down this path, so I decided to take a step back and look at the situation objectively. I realized that I had to take a more respectful approach if I wanted to have a chance to fix things. I could tell her that she was trying to create a distance between us. I was hurt and angry, but I did not know how to confront her about it. While trying to sleep one night, I noticed she was using her cell phone. I opened my eyes randomly and saw she was using Instagram. I decided to pay attention to her. I saw that it was a new ID that she was logging into. As I read her name and other details, I began to realize the situation. I had figured out that she had created a new account to hide her activities from me. It felt like my heart had dropped and I could not believe what she had done. In the past, I had no interest in doing this, but now I am forced to do so. I have made a fake Instagram ID and started following her. She has a private account on Instagram. After I sent her the request, she approved it after 5 days. Upon her acceptance, I checked her following and noticed a picture of that man who was our neighbor. When I first saw him added to her account, I found it strange. It was troubling to me as to why she made another Instagram account and that man was on her Instagram account at the same time. That was why I became most suspicious. I confronted her about it and she admitted that she had made the account to keep an eye on him. In addition to stalking my social media accounts, she has also reported that she finds him doing strange activities. She said she was suspicious of him too and wanted to find out more about his activities. I was glad to know the truth but still a little worried about what he was up to. In a pub where I went to hang out with a friend after 2 days, I noticed a woman who looked the same as that neighbor's wife. As she kissed and grabbed a man sitting in the corner table of the pub, I tried to ignore her, but I couldn't help but record her while she was kissing. She then got out of the pub and I trailed behind them, and then they got into the car where they got physical. I decided to follow them to see where they were going. They were inside and I knew they were spending the night together. Then I approached them. I once again recorded her. Even though it was her affair, I did not understand why I recorded. Maybe because of her husband's unusual behavior towards me. I felt guilty for invading their privacy, but I was also curious to know what was going on. I did not know what to do, so I kept recording, hoping to uncover the truth. Anyway, that night I went home. I thought I should tell my wife, but she stopped talking to me. Therefore, I did not. As I had to finish my work in the office during the second last week in the December, I often came home extremely late or sometimes did not come home at all. I felt pressure of completing work was too great. The day early morning, I returned home after finishing work. I opened the door very calmly. I thought my wife was sleeping, but I was heading towards my room. I spent maybe 5 nights at the office. Her voice could be heard on a cell phone. In fact, she was talking to someone about the fun they had last night when she told him about me. I had not come home. This made me shiver and I was in trauma. Could you really do that to me? Suddenly, I left the house feeling uncomfortable and breathless. As I stood outside, I wondered what had happened. I thought about confronting her. I went in and she was taking breakfast and started acting as if nothing had happened. When I was standing, I was shocked to see her sharpness. I quickly glanced at her cell phone and saw that there were messages explaining why the call was cut off. The picture of that neighbor was displayed in the notification of messages. I left the home without having breakfast or saying anything to her. I went to a nearby park where I could deep breathe to calm me down. I was getting agitated. I built an objective to destroy their lives who had hurt and cheated me. Originally intended to push that rascal. I was determined to take revenge. I decided to track down my neighbor and find out what he was up to. I was ready to go to my lengths to get justice. It was also imperative to me that I gave my wife a punishment. For that reason, firstly, I called his wife and asked her to meet with me. She asked me what I wanted. I told her I would like to show your husband these videos. She then asked me again what exactly I wanted to do. I told her I wanted 50k for not showing him this video. She asked me, "Are you nuts?" I said yes. She looked at me, shocked. I told her I was serious and that I would not hesitate to share the video. She agreed to pay me the money, and I left the restaurant. "I'm not a good guy. I know your husband has that money." She said, "Yes, it's too much." I replied, "I've told you the amount now, so you decide whether to accept it or not. Otherwise, I know what I need to do." She asked for some time, so I gave her 24 hours. She seemed to understand and accept the deal. I was relieved that I did not have to take any extreme measures. We arranged to meet tomorrow to finalize the transaction. I finally got 20k from her. According to her, she had 20k right now. I accepted that and demanded a kiss from her. She hesitated at first, but then I blackmailed her again. She reluctantly complied and I left. I felt a slight twinge of guilt for what I had done, but the money was worth it. I knew I could never see her again. I signed a man to take a couple of pictures while she kissed me, but she refused at first. But I understood why she didn't kiss me. I decided to let her go and left without any further incident. I was happy that the money was mine, but the guilt was still there. I had taken advantage of her and I knew it. Then I sent her husband the video and a picture of that night, with caption, "Your wife is sleeping with many men now. If she gets intimate with anyone, you can feel the lust for her. If he feels ashamed, I'm sure he'll feel the same way that I did." I looked at the video and picture one last time before pressing send. I felt a sense of satisfaction that I had been able to take revenge, but also guilt for having done something so cruel. With a heavy heart, regardless, I went home. I told her to sit down with me. I said calmly, "I wanted you to leave my house." She replied with, "What? You heard me right. You need to leave now, because I've seen the recording of you with our neighbor in bed." She was silent, but I could see surprise in her eyes. She was about to say something, but then I held up my hand to stop her. I told her that I didn't want to hear any excuses, and then she needed to leave now, informing her that I will send divorce papers to her as soon as possible and that you would never try to file a prenup lawsuit against me. I made it clear that no questions should be asked, because I can show the evidence of your infidelity in court and you'll be exposed. The first thing I noticed was that she did not even accept her mistake. But when I said I had the video recordings, even though I didn't have any, she sat down at my feet and begged me for forgiveness. I realized that she was trying to avoid the consequences of her actions. I told her that I did not want to hurt her, but she had to accept the consequences of her choices and take responsibility. I made it clear that I would not accept any more of her lies. I just said, "You should leave and I'm giving you a divorce. That's your forgiveness." She looked devastated, but nodded her head in agreement. She got up slowly and left the room without another word. I watched her go, feeling a mix of sadness and relief.